Hello, beautiful moms and entrepreneurs. My name is Charisse Walker, and I'm your host of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. This is a place where we come together to learn, grow, and inspire. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello, Unbreakable Mompreneurs. My name is Charisse Walker, and I'm your host, and I'm here with Dr. Cindy Starke. And I just want you women to know today, if you are struggling or if you're trying to, you're going through some things, today is going to be a great day to listen to the podcast. Cindy, I'm going to start with you introducing yourself.
Yes, my name is Dr. Cindy Starke, and I'm an internal medicine doctor in Gainesville, Georgia. And I always say that I practice hospital medicine by day, and then I help busy moms and professionals have a better life by night.
And those are two really big, you're helping people everywhere, but those are big differences,
Yeah, for sure, to say the least.
I love that. So how did you get started into helping busy moms?
Well, I'll tell you, I'd like to backtrack and tell you how it didn't really happen until 30 years into medicine. So I want to start that question by how I got into medicine. Unfortunately, when I was 14 years old, I was like a victim of some sexual abuse in my childhood home at the hands of my brother's friends. And I just wanted to get so far away from my house and from my family because they just weren't really protecting me from this constant influx of my brother and his friends. They were all on drugs and alcohol, and I just wanted to get out of there. So I found that education was a great way to get away from a family full of drugs and alcohol because they don't do that. So I kind of started, and a bachelor's degree led to a medical degree. Then that led to a graduate degree. And I kind of realized a few years into all of that, why did I have to get 2 doctorate degrees? And then I did this Ironman triathlon. And why did I have to do the longest triathlon, available? And I said, I think it's because I'm trying to prove that I'm worthy of a worthy of love, worthy of protection. And so I stopped kind of doing all that and kind of got out of that rat race of life. And then I was kind of able to stop kind of having that myopic vision. And I started looking all around me at these moms and that were doctors and nurses and case managers and social workers and everything else. And they just all seemed really tired and really burned out and really lonely. And they didn't have a voice. They just didn't seem to be valued in the workplace. And so through my own healing journey with a lot of retreats and coaching, I kind of got rid of some childhood trauma, all that childhood trauma from when I was 14 that was holding me back, rewired my brain to show myself, actually, I am worthy. We were all born worthy. We don't have to, get all these doctors and accolades to prove to ourselves that we are worthy. And then I just transferred what I learned for myself I got certified in those same tools that they did for me, and I started helping other people. So I've been doing that for about 4 years now. And it's just been very fulfilling to see people kind of come to life again right in front of my eyes.
And thank you for sharing that, because I knew it, but I didn't know if you'd want to be able to talk about that. So first of all,
absolutely.
I'm amazed at how many of us, and I'm going to put myself in your category, not as extreme as you had to endure, unfortunately, as a child, but, there's so many people that have been victims in their youth. And I've seen some people who, they use that and it's an excuse for everything. They live in that and they relive in it every single day. And then I see people like you or like me that, when we first got on, you're like, hello, And I just thought, because I had read your bio and I read your history, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's not this bitter, angry person,
No.
And I love
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to say, my sister used to always have this saying. She told me, she said, well, you could let this make you bitter or you could let it make you better. And I just decided, it took a long time. I actually repressed that memory for almost 30 years, legit. I had forgotten it happened. And even if I could remember it happened, I still didn't qualify it as, sexual abuse or rape because it wasn't intercourse per se, but it was still, my body being touched in ways that I would have never said okay to that. And as a little 14-year-old girl, how do you speak up for yourself? I mean, it's really scary. Kids are so, they're just, what is the word I'm looking for? They just don't have a lot of, that they can't garner for their own
Right.
safety
Yeah.
and control. So it is really sad. But I told myself, Charisse, once I got through it and I realized what had happened, that there is nothing that I was brought through that couldn't be turned around to use for the betterment of everybody else, and including myself. And so I just knew it happened to me for a reason, and I just didn't want to let that trauma go to waste. So I
Right.
used it for other people.
And I think it's interesting because I was in kindergarten and I didn't know. And you're right, you repress it. And it wasn't until seventh grade when I'm like, why can't I talk to boys? Or even as an adult, when I start to get jobs and I'm like, why am I so intimidated? Why can't I stick up for myself? And then I started to like realize, my gosh. And so I think that that's the part that it doesn't have to be something big. We all have this trauma. We all experience trauma. And if you haven't gone through this, you've gone through something. Either it was a best friend hurting your feelings or betraying you or a close loved one. It doesn't matter what it is. We all have trauma. So it's what do we do with that? And I like that. I actually just wrote that down. Bitter or better. It's going to be
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and the lady who helped me with my healing, she said that trauma is not what happened to you, it's what you tell yourself over
yes.
and over and over again after it.
Yeah.
Number one, I wanted to say that to your audience. And then also, you do not need to think that you went through something traumatic like a car accident or a rape or seeing someone murdered in front of you to think that you are suffering ill effects from trauma. A trauma could be watching your grandpa die, or like you just said, getting bullied or having your feelings hurt by a little silly kid in elementary school, or being treated bad on the job. It could be, all of that is traumatic and tells us lies about ourselves, Charisse.
It does. And the sad part is our brain only believes what we tell it. So if we, focus on the positive, and a good example, I could give you like 100 right now that I woke up, go to sleep last night because some things are happening and it's just, it just gets in you. And so I'm like, whoa, you have to stop. I need to rewrite this narrative here. And I need to start focusing on all the good things because it is so easy to let the flood of negativity come in. And so if your brain can rewire that and say, no, what do you like? What is this? What's the purpose of it? How can we work through this? That's where, as an entrepreneur, let's bring this back to business for a second, that you have a bad customer or you have a bad employee or there's financial issues or your order didn't come and it was supposed to come. Like there are so many issues, but how do you deal with it? And so what are some of the things that you talk about with your clients? Yeah, or your moms?
Oh my goodness. I one of my favorite things to tell people is that that anger that you're feeling at that client or that boss, or that that payment didn't come through, or the sadness that you're feeling about something else, those feelings are there for you. That don't shy away from those. They're there to tell you kind of where boundaries are being crossed. And I think that in America we're just we call them negative emotions, and like, no, I'm not going to feel those, and they just kind of shove them down or push them aside or just act like they don't exist at all. And I just think that all of those things are there for you. That's the first thing I tell people. And then we do a lot of one of our tools is inner child resourcing. So like my one client, Jenny, she was emotionally overeating. She had just her mom was dying, she was going through menopause. And she was just telling herself that she hated herself. And she was so mad at the decisions she had made, that she had been an alcoholic earlier in her life, that she had moved across the country and she wasn't with her mom when she very first started going downhill. And we just kind of take those feelings out, those emotions out, and really accept her for who she is. And we resource all the different versions of Jenny, like the 3-year-old, the 6-year-old Jenny, the 14-year-old, the 13-year-old, the 30-year-old Jenny, and let that version of her, know that you're her mom now and you're her parent now, and you love that little girl, whether she's 3 or 43, and you just start healing it from the inside out, and then you realize that all of that was there for a reason, and you can grow past it and put it to good use.
And you should grow past it, address it, don't repress it.
I like that.
Oh, I'm like, wait, I need to write that one down. Because I just love that. We are all here for a reason. As you can see, my face is super puffy. So I had like cellulitis over the weekend and I was in the ER and stuff. And
Oh,
I went to the doctor today and he's like, oh, it's going to be, another 3 weeks. And I'm like, are you kidding me? My eyes open. You can't really tell other than I'm not wearing makeup on the
oh,
side because nobody would tell, but you can. And so it's like, okay, well, let's just embrace it. I could have canceled all my appointments this week and just no, let's just keep moving forward because that's what matters is you just keep moving forward no matter what, and address it.
that's true. Well, right this minute, I'm pulled over in a neighborhood. Thank goodness I found some shade under some trees because it's almost 90 degrees here in Atlanta, Georgia, and there was a traffic accident. And I wasn't going to cancel on you. I'm like, I'm going to find a way to make this work. And I wanted to be in with my laptop and my fancy microphone for you and for your audience. But I always say that finished is better than perfect, and nobody really expects us all to be perfect. My kids are both musicians, and when they mess up on stage, it makes the audience feel so much more connected to them because they're human. It humanifies us, or whatever that word is.
It does. And I think that, when you talk to people like the podcast episodes, and some of their biggest listeners are the ones where you're the most vulnerable, or because you want to see what happens. Like I did this live Facebook yesterday and I started bawling because I was so grateful and about, I should just record that. I'm like, no, press play or save it and keep going. And I think that that's what I appreciated when you're like, oh, we can reschedule or something. I'm like, no, this is real. It's good.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
So that's
I think when I started this journey of getting my message out, I thought that all podcast hosts were, in business suits and just like all this professional lighting. And if I was ever in my car in my workout clothes, it would just be like sacrilegious, but y'all are all real people. And I really appreciate that.
No, it's totally true. So
Turns out.
So what are some of the things that you notice? Because everyone's different, I get that. But when you're running a business and you're trying to be a mom and you're feeling like you're not living up to everything, like what are some of the things that you'd recommend we say to ourselves so that we refocus? I mean, what do we need to do?
Well, I was going to say, for some reason, I have no problem with myself and how I take myself, because I know that all the hats I wear, it's filling my cup up, and I'm no use as a mother unless my cups are all filled up. But it's my kids that I worry about. And so, from the time they were 3, I mean, literally, I took my son in the stroller at the hospital. He saw patients with me on the weekends. So they just realized, when they were little, I'd say, mommy has to call in admission orders for this patient. And I would just make sure as soon as they could understand that this is my job, and it's giving us the ability. For me, it was to send them to private school. That's what most of my income went toward, and getting them braces and buying them the clothes they wanted, and just going on little trips or maybe going out to eat at the restaurant. I would tell them, it's not that I'm not paying attention to you. This is just mommy's job. And so, I have to do that. And I was just well aware that I could never be this perfect mom who was just 24/7, every single bit of my attention focused on them. And so I just had to start, I don't want to say multitask, because I really try to be 100% present with my patients when I'm a doctor, and then 100% present with my kids when I'm with my kids. But I just try to give myself work hours, so I start and stop at a certain time. Actually, it's bad because now they're both in college, and so I sometimes find myself doing stuff with my business from 8 in the morning till 9 at night. And I'm like, Cindy, you got to give yourself work hours, even though your kids aren't at home anymore. Because I'm just really passionate about helping people, and I don't like seeing people suffer. And girl, it took me almost 30 years to understand what happened to me and kind of get out of that thinking. So I don't want anyone else to suffer as long as I did. So I'll just kind of burn the candle at both ends a little bit. I mean, 8 to 9, I don't want to say like I get up at 5 and I stay up till 1, but you know what I'm saying? I'll just kind of be doing something all day long. But yeah, just, I guess, Charisse, just tell yourself you're doing the best you can and have grace, and you can't be perfect 24/7 as a doctor, or excuse me, as a professional, or as a mom, or as a wife. So just do the best in any one particular situation when you're there, and be present with whatever it is that you're geared onto at that moment.
I love that. That's true. I was having that conversation because I'm like you. And I was talking with a family member and she's like, well, I won't tell you because I don't want to ask that person, but they said they have this talent, but it's not really talent, where when they start to feel inferior or they start to have these demons, they start to like take on more and more and more. And I love that you said it's because you're to overcompensate or trying to prove to yourself or prove to somebody else that you can handle it and you can do this. And as I was talking with her yesterday, I'm like, oh my gosh, sometimes I do that, or I know clearly the person. And I never really thought about that it's like, you're right. You don't have to prove anything to anybody. You are who you are for a reason. So I love that you had brought that up earlier in our conversation, that you embraced it and you didn't have to get 2 PhDs or, a doctorate degree. You do
no, and I'm so glad that I did. Like, I'm so glad that I'm a doctor and I love taking care of my patients. But what's great is once I kind of had my breaking point, after the pandemic, and I went through all that self-healing, and I just said, I can't keep doing this anymore at this rate. I was on call from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m, 2 kids in high school. I was in a pretty bad relationship with their dad, and I said something's got to give. Mm-hmm. And so I actually quit full-time medicine, and that's when I said I love my patients, but I love them so much more when I'm only seeing them 9 days a month instead of 22 days a month. Yeah. And so now I just flipped it. Instead of having 9 days off and working 22, now I work 9 and I have 22 days off. And I'm so glad that I did it. Right. I'm so glad. I have no regrets, but you just, if you think you have to do it all, you're going to burn out. And that's what happened to me. And I'm happy that I quit and that I'm part-time now too, because it's given me all this time at the end of the day to help women really truly heal from their limiting beliefs, that are holding them back in a lot worse ways than someone who has high blood pressure and needs a blood pressure pill. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I feel like I'm really finally making a difference in all aspects. So it's just, I'm just so happy. Well,
you're helping people in everything, like you said. And so
thank you
for that. Okay. So one more question that I have to ask. And you've kind of have already answered it, but I'm going to see if you have something else as well, because I want you to think back to when you were a mom and you were starting out your business and, trying to juggle all of that. And like I said, you've kind of already answered this, but what is one piece of advice you're speaking to that person, like whatever age you were at that point? And now that you've had all this wisdom, what is something you would say to that person that's juggling the little kids and juggling the career?
Well, I'm going to say something that everybody might not agree with, because everybody has different circadian rhythms, but I'm a morning person. Mm-hmm. And so what I would recommend, and I wish I would have done, is just carve out 2 hours. Let's say my best times are from 5 to 10 a.m. But let's just say I would, from 5 to 7, before I had to get the first kid up to get ready to go to school and make breakfast. Whatever it is that you want to do for your clients. Mm-hmm. So I was a full-time doctor, full-time mom, full-time wife, and starting this business. That was me. So I wish I would have just done from 5 to 7 a.m., get up before the kids are up, and do everything you want to do for the business, so that you won't be still doing it until like 8 o'clock at night once your kids are home from school. And just accept the limitations that your body's going to give you. And 2 hours a day is enough. Maybe 2 hours 3 times a week is enough. But just don't think that you have to, compromise your time with your kids while you're building something new. That's one thing I wish I would have told myself. I think I just kind of worked on it all day long. And I'll never forget this one time my son was drawing a picture of all of us in the family, and he drew me with my laptop. But everybody was with the one thing they loved. So my daughter was with her tennis racket. He was with his baseball bat. Her dad was, I guess, probably with a newspaper or a calculator, because he was a banker. And then I had a laptop, and I'm like, gosh, I'm on my laptop all the time. This is terrible. But just have some grace with yourself. You're doing the best you can. Just time management is I think that's the easiest way to say what I'm trying to say. And find the time of the day where you're productive, and do it in as little amount of time as possible.
And I was going to clarify that, because I think sometimes when I hear 2 hours, I'm like, oh my gosh, but even if it's 20 minutes a day,
Yes,
or 10 minutes, just taking time where you're looking at them in the eyes and having a full on conversation with them, I think that quality time is way better than spending 3 hours taking them to a movie, because you're not talking to them.
yes,
And so
yes,
it's that quality time that's important too.
yes. And even right now, I'll tell you, even though I'm not a mommy with kids, I have a 19-year-old and a 21-year-old. Girl, when I miss them, I'll text them and I say, can I take you to dinner? And my son will always be available during the day, and my daughter's always available at night because she works. But then so I go over there, and I'll spend like 8 hours at their university town. Thank God they're in the same university. Yeah. And I'll just have one-on-one time, and I'll take him to lunch, and then we'll go to a music store, and my phone is in my car or in my purse. I don't look at it, and I just completely listen to Wyatt. And then I'll do the same thing with my daughter. We'll go to dinner, and then I'll get both of them, and we'll go get ice cream. Yeah, just a meal once every 2 weeks. It just they think that I am the best mom in the world for doing that, because it's one-on-one time, and also I'm getting them out of their routine, and I'm listening to them. Yeah. And it's the highlight of my month. I do that at least twice a month.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So I don't want people to think that just because they're away in college, you miss out on that opportunity, because they're still right there with you. But you really do. You got to start young, because I think if a parent was MIA, like missing in action, and they just weren't doing anything with them, and then all of a sudden they try to show up when they're in their 20s, they're going to be like, what are you doing this for now? So I've always done that. And I just love my kids so much and love to hear what they have to say.
That's cool. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So if somebody wants to find you, how do they find you?
Yeah, I see the best way to get in touch with me, because everything is in this one central location, is to go to my website, DrCindyStarke.com. Okay. And there's an E after my last name, and there's a way to connect with me on social media, and then there's also a way to book 15-minute call with me to see if you have some subconscious blocks holding you back. And then there's also an awesome training that I shot. It's about 30 minutes long, that kind of explains my process and what I do.
That's great. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Unbreakable Moms, we have yet finished another fantastic episode with Dr. Cindy Starke. And if you are struggling with your mindset or with trying to overcome something, then reach out to her, and she can be happy, or would be happy, to help you. So just go make it a great day and focus on the positive. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, I'm Charisse Walker with Unbreakable Mompreneurs. Beautiful moms, remember, you are unbreakable. Keep illuminating the world with your strength, pursuing your dreams, and reveling in the splendor of motherhood. This is Charisse Walker, bidding you farewell for now. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations on the next episode of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. Until then, keep shining bright. Signing off with love, Charisse Walker.